Wow, what a wild ride. Imagine waking up one day and finding out someone tried to steal your land. What would you do? Let me know in the comments. Also, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far our stories travel. If you enjoyed this battle for justice, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got another mind-blowing story dropping tomorrow, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you in the next one. I woke up and my land was sold. The HOA's biggest scam. Ethan Carter had spent his entire life on his family's farm in Wyoming, just like his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather before him. At 42 years old, he had always known that running a farm wasn't easy, but he never imagined the real battle wouldn't be against the land, it would be against his own homeowners association. One morning, as he sat on his tractor, enjoying the crisp morning air, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Annoyed, he finally checked his messages. 10 missed calls from neighbors. 3 voicemails from his cousin. 1 email from the HOA. The subject line sent a chill down his spine. Violation notice. Ethan opened the email and almost laughed. The Silver Creek Estates HOA claimed that his tractor noise violated community standards and that his chicken coops created offensive odors that affected property values. They demanded he shut down all farming operations within 48 hours or face a $200 per day fine. But Ethan wasn't laughing when he got a visit the next morning. A sleek, black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Karen Mitchell, the HOA president. Dressed in a spotless white pantsuit, she walked toward Ethan's porch, flanked by 2 board members. Clipboard in hand, she didn't waste time. "Mr. Carter, we need to discuss your violations." Ethan folded his arms. "There's nothing to discuss. Your HOA has no jurisdiction over my land." Karen's smile was cold. "Actually, that's where you're wrong. According to county records, your agricultural exemption expired last year. That means your land now falls under HOA regulations." Ethan's stomach dropped. That didn't make sense. His property tax bills hadn't changed, and his family had owned this farm for over 100 years. "That's impossible," he said. Karen handed him a cease and desist order. "Times change, Mr. Carter. We have new standards now." Then, she turned and walked away. Something wasn't right. Ethan pulled out his phone and called his cousin, Jake Carter, a town council member. "Jake, what's going on?" Jake's voice was tense. "They've been planning this for months, Ethan. Karen's been having secret meetings with developers. I think they've already sold your land." Ethan's grip tightened around his phone. Sold? He had to find out the truth, before it was too late. Ethan Carter sat at his kitchen table, staring at the cease and desist order in his hands. His mind raced. How could the HOA sell his land? He hadn't signed anything. His agricultural exemption was supposed to be valid for another 5 years. But Karen Mitchell stood there yesterday, smug and confident, acting like it was already a done deal. He picked up his phone and called Jake, his cousin on the town council. "Jake, tell me everything you know." There was a long pause before Jake finally spoke. "They've been planning this for months, Ethan. Karen's been holding private meetings with developers, changing meeting minutes after they're approved. From what I heard, Silver Creek Estates sold your land to Westview Development 3 weeks ago." Ethan felt a sharp chill run down his spine. 3 weeks ago? That was impossible. The next morning, he was back out in the fields before sunrise, just like always. The hum of his tractor was comforting, a reminder that this land still belonged to him. But his phone wouldn't stop buzzing again. This time, it wasn't just neighbors. It was the county sheriff. "Ethan, we need to talk." An hour later, Sheriff Davis, an old high school friend, pulled into Ethan's driveway. He stepped out of his cruiser, rubbing his neck. "Look, man, you know I don't buy into HOA nonsense, but they've filed multiple complaints. Noise violations. Public nuisance claims. They even started a petition to have your farm classified as an environmental hazard." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You've known my family forever, Dave. We've been farming this land for generations. What's really going on?" Davis sighed. "The HOA is pushing a massive development project, and your land is right in the middle of it. They're trying to force you out." That's when Ethan saw them, 3 men in suits, walking across his eastern fields, taking pictures and measurements. His blood ran cold. Ethan jumped in his truck and sped toward them, gravel flying under his tires. He slammed on the brakes and threw open the door. "Can I help you?" he called out. "You're trespassing." A tall man in a designer suit turned and smiled. "I'm James Miller with Westview Development. We're surveying the land for planning purposes." Ethan's heart pounded. "Planning for what?" "This is my farm." Miller frowned. "According to our paperwork, Westview purchased 4,200 acres from Silver Creek Estates 3 weeks ago. Construction begins next month." Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. "That's impossible. I never sold my land." Miller pulled out a folder and handed Ethan a copy of the documents. Official survey maps. County stamps. And a signature that looked exactly like his. Ethan's hands shook as he flipped through the pages. His name. His signature. But he never signed anything. That's when he spotted her. Karen Mitchell. Sitting in her luxury SUV, parked at the edge of his property. Watching him. And when she saw him looking, she smiled. And waved. Ethan Carter stood frozen, the forged documents still in his hands. His land, 4,200 acres, sold without his knowledge. His signature, perfectly copied. His family's legacy, stolen right out from under him. And there, sitting in her luxury SUV, was Karen Mitchell, smirking like she had already won. Ethan clenched his jaw. Not today. Not ever. He jumped back into his truck and sped home, his mind racing. How could this happen? His real property deeds were locked in his safe. He yanked it open, pulled out the papers, and compared them to the fraudulent ones. Something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. His phone buzzed. "Sir, this is the county recorder's office," the woman on the line said. "We received your request. According to our records, 4,200 acres were transferred to Silver Creek Estates Community Trust 6 weeks ago. You now only own 750 acres. Ethan's grip tightened. "That's not possible. I never signed anything." "Sir, the documents have your signature," she said. "Do you want me to email you copies?" When Ethan opened the file, his forged signature stared back at him. His stomach churned. And then, a memory hit him. His great-grandfather's contract. Ethan sprinted back to the safe, shuffling through old documents until he found it, a 1943 agreement between his family and the county. It allowed the county to build a reservoir on their land, one that supplied water to the entire Silver Creek Estates community. But there was a catch. Agricultural use takes priority. And he still controlled the main water valve. Ethan sat down, took a deep breath, and made 3 calls: his lawyer, the local newspaper, and the state water authority. 2 days later, Silver Creek Estates woke up with no running water. Karen Mitchell called 17 times before Ethan finally picked up. "What did you do?" she screamed. Ethan calmly buttered his toast. "Nothing illegal," he said. "I'm just prioritizing my farm's water supply. You know, as per the original agreement." By that evening, chaos erupted. Developers threatened to sue. Homeowners revolted. The county launched a fraud investigation. A week later, the judge ruled in Ethan's favor. His land was restored. Karen? Removed from the HOA. The developers? Gone. And Silver Creek Estates? Forced to rewrite their bylaws, forever protecting local farms. Ethan stepped outside that night, inhaling the crisp Wyoming air. They tried to steal his land, but instead, they reminded an entire community why it mattered. Ethan Carter thought the fight was over. He had won back his land, exposed the fraudulent land deal, and watched as Karen Mitchell was removed from the HOA. Silver Creek Estates had been forced to rewrite their bylaws, and the developers had packed up and disappeared. But Ethan should have known better. HOAs don't give up that easily. With Karen gone, Mark Reynolds, 50, was elected as the new HOA president. He wasn't as reckless as Karen. He was calculated, patient, and just as determined to drive Ethan off his farm. Their first move? Cutting off his access road. One morning, Ethan's cousin Jake called. "Ethan, you need to get down here. The HOA just filed a petition with the county to reclassify your access road as private property. If this goes through, they can block you from using it." Ethan cursed under his breath. If they succeeded, his farm would be completely landlocked, making it impossible to get equipment, livestock, or supplies in and out. Without hesitation, Ethan drove straight to the county zoning office. He slammed the original land records onto the clerk's desk. "That access road has been legally protected for over 70 years, Ethan said. "The HOA doesn't have the authority to change that." The county official raised an eyebrow, skimmed through the paperwork, then chuckled. "They can petition all they want," he said. "But this road is legally yours. We'll reject their request immediately." Strike one. The HOA didn't stop there. A week later, environmental inspectors showed up at Ethan's farm. "We received multiple complaints about pesticide misuse, improper waste disposal, and livestock creating a public health hazard," one inspector explained. Ethan folded his arms. "Let me guess. The HOA sent you?" The inspector hesitated. "We can't say, but let's just say there's been a flood of reports." Ethan smirked. "They wanted to play dirty? Fine." He had connections too. He made one call to Lisa Moreno, a state agricultural inspector and longtime family friend. The next morning, Lisa arrived with her own clipboard. She conducted a full inspection, then turned to the county officials with a clear statement. The Carter farm is in full compliance with all state agricultural regulations. 0 violations. Then she did something better. She personally called the HOA and warned them that filing false reports could lead to criminal charges. Strike two. That should have been enough to stop them. But Silver Creek Estates wasn't done yet. Their final move? A new HOA rule targeting Ethan directly. A letter arrived in the mail, marked urgent. The HOA had passed a newly created rule about unsightly properties, and they claimed Ethan's farm equipment, storage sheds, and livestock pens violated community aesthetics. They demanded he restore visual harmony or face daily fines. Ethan stared at the letter, then laughed out loud. They really thought he was going to fold? They had no idea who they were messing with. Ethan Carter had played defense long enough. First, the HOA tried to take his land. They failed. Then, they tried to cut off his access road. They failed. Next, they flooded the county with false environmental complaints. They failed. And now, they were trying to fine him for violating community aesthetics. Enough was enough. Ethan didn't bother responding to their letter. He had something better in mind. Instead of backing down, he escalated. The next morning, he called his lawyer. I want to sue them for harassment and unlawful interference with my business. Then, he reached out to a local investigative journalist. It was time for everyone to see what the HOA had been up to. Within a week, the story went viral. Rural farmer battles corrupt HOA over stolen land. The headline hit every local news station. The HOA board members panicked. Residents were furious. Homeowners who had once blindly supported the HOA were now demanding answers. But Ethan wasn't done yet. He filed a formal request for a state audit of Silver Creek Estates' finances. He already suspected that Karen Mitchell and Mark Reynolds had been mismanaging funds. And he was right. The audit uncovered $125,000 in misallocated HOA funds. Mark Reynolds resigned under pressure. The remaining board members held personally liable for the missing funds. The county stepped in and permanently barred the HOA from interfering with agricultural properties. And the final nail in the coffin? Silver Creek Estates HOA was officially dissolved within 6 months. Ethan stood by his fence, watching as the last Silver Creek Estates sign was taken down. It was over. He had won. The HOA had tried everything to take him down, but in the end, they destroyed themselves. Ethan looked out over his land, the land his family had worked for over 100 years. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the rolling fields. He took a deep breath, feeling a deep sense of peace for the first time in a long time. They had tried to take everything from him. But instead, he had taken them down for good. Wow, what a battle! Can you imagine fighting against an entire HOA just to keep the land that's rightfully yours? What would you have done in Ethan's situation? Let me know in the comments. Would you have fought back the same way, or taken a different approach? And here's something interesting. Have you ever had a bad experience with an HOA? Maybe ridiculous fines, unfair rules, or power-hungry board members? Share your story below. We love reading your comments, and who knows, your experience might even inspire our next big story. Also, tell us where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far our stories reach. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we've got another unbelievable story dropping tomorrow. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for being part of this amazing community. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to hear what you think. Drop a comment, hit like, and we'll see you in the next one.